Okay, hi, so welcome to this video where we're going to speak about blood vessels, right? This is continuing our videos on the circulatory system. If you haven't viewed the last video on the heart, then I do encourage you to go and do that first. Alright, so first of all, what is a blood vessel? Now, blood vessels are basically the tubes which carry blood around our body. Yep, the blood is pumped by our heart and it goes to the rest of our body, and the way it gets to the rest of our body is via blood vessels. Now, there are more than one type of blood vessel, okay, and that's what we're going to have a look at mainly in this video. They are structurally different from each other, and there's a good reason for that, and we're going to have a look at the structure of all three and then go through the reasons for those structures. So let's crack straight on and have a look at the first, which is the artery, right, or arteries for plural. Now, apologies for these diagrams. They were obviously drawn by myself, and so they're not going to be works of art. But the arteries, basically, they carry blood away from the heart, right? So when the heart pumps, the blood immediately is pushed into an artery, right? And the artery carries it elsewhere. It might be going to the lungs, okay, if it's being pumped from the right-hand side of the heart, or if it's being pumped out of the left-hand side of the heart, it's going via the aorta to the rest of the body. So, arteries, let's first label them, okay? So what you have is, here is basically your wall, okay? It's the wall of the vessel. And this pink layer here, okay, this is actually smooth muscle and elastic fibers, okay? So smooth muscle, and elastic fibers. Right, those elastic fibers are going to be things like proteins, and they're there in order to make the artery structurally stronger. Okay, what's going to happen is that when the blood enters the artery, it's going to be at a very high pressure, right? It's going to be at a high pressure because it's being pumped directly from the heart, and so in order to withstand that high pressure and not burst, these arteries need a thick wall to do so, right? So the smooth muscle and the elastic fibers are there to allow for one, the artery to stretch, okay, so it can stretch open a little bit more, and two, stop it from bursting, okay? So that's the reason for those, or for that layer. And then this, which is the center, this basically is where the blood goes, right? So if you think the blood is coming this way, right, I'll draw it in red. The blood is coming this way. It's going through this, right? This is just a hole in the middle, basically. Okay, and what that is called is the lumen. Okay, now the lumen of the artery is relatively narrow. Okay, relatively narrow. I'm going to write that in here, actually. Relatively narrow. Okay, there's a good reason for that, because it allows the blood to stay at a high pressure. You think if you had a really wide lumen, that increases the volume. And if you increase the volume, okay, you're going to decrease the pressure that the blood is at. And so this allows the blood to maintain a high pressure, which allows it to be pumped to basically the rest of your body. All right, and so next, let's scroll down here. Next we have the veins. All right, now the veins, you can tell they are structurally kind of different to the arteries, right? They're still large. Both of these blood vessels, right, the arteries and the veins are large. However, they do look different. So you'll notice that it has a thinner wall on the outside. You'll also notice that this pink layer here is much thinner than it was in the artery, right? If we go up here versus the one down here, it's way thinner, okay? That allows for this, which is a much larger lumen, right? So the lumen is very wide. Okay, there's a good reason for that. Okay, having a wide lumen means that it can carry a lot of blood, and it also allows the blood to flow despite the blood being at a low pressure. Right, in the veins, the blood is at a way lower pressure because the veins are basically the large vessels which carry blood back to the heart. So the blood is pumped from the heart at high pressure through the arteries. It then gets to where it needs to go, okay, and then it branches off into another type of vessel we're going to see next, and that basically reduces the blood pressure greatly, right? The blood literally slows down, and then at the end it basically goes back into the veins, and when it's in the veins, you're going to have a lower pressure, so you need a larger volume to allow that blood to continue flowing. Right, now there's something else that allows the blood to continue flowing, and that are these things. That is called a valve. Okay, and you'll notice the shape of the valve. Basically, blood is allowed to go this way. Should have changed color really, but oh well. Okay, so blood flow is allowed in one direction, but notice if it tried to go backwards, that valve would just snap shut. Okay, because it'd be pushing against it. It'd almost be like closing a door versus opening a door, right? And that's the difference. And so the valves make sure that the blood is continually flowing in a single direction. A single direction. Okay, so let's take a look at the last kind of vessel. And this doesn't look very interesting, but there are loads and loads and loads of these guys at work in our bodies. Okay, these are the capillaries. Now the capillaries are way, way smaller than both the arteries and the veins. Okay, the order is that arteries lead to capillaries. They branch off into multiple capillaries, and then the capillaries will all flow back into a vein. Okay, so the capillaries are way smaller, right? You'll notice that the wall is really thin. Okay, this is actually 1 cell thick. Okay, the wall is 1 cell thick. Okay, and it is also permeable. Right, I shouldn't put a slash there because they're not the same thing. So, and permeable. Right, so the wall is 1 cell thick. The reason for that is so that when substances are being exchanged, there is a short diffusion distance. Right, you've already seen this if you've had a look at my videos on exchange surfaces, where you're looking at the alveoli. Okay, if you're looking at the alveoli, they are neighbored by a capillary, and we said in those videos, there's 2 videos where I go through it, that there is a short diffusion distance as a result of a 1 cell thick wall, and that is this here. Okay, because the capillaries have a wall which is only 1 cell thick. Okay. It's important to note there are loads of these guys, right? These literally travel next to cells, right? They don't just, like, you can't see them with your naked eye. They're so small that they will travel in very close proximity to cells. They'll be supplying cells with substances. That's why the wall has to be permeable, because certain things such as oxygen and carbon dioxide need to be able to diffuse readily across the capillary into the cell, or from the cell back into the capillary, so that it can take something like the CO2 back to the heart or whatever it's going to be. Okay, but this is where most of the exchange of substances occurs. A nice analogy to use is that arteries and veins are basically like motorways, right? Coming from your heart and then going back to your heart. But then if you actually want to get to the houses, let's say the houses are the cells, right? You have to go via capillaries. So the capillaries supply all of the cells, okay, and can therefore deliver the oxygen and then take the carbon dioxide and bring it back, right? But in order to go back to the heart, you need to travel up the motorway again, and that's going to be your vein. All right, so a very, very quick summary of that. Okay, so what happens when a heart beats? Where does the blood go? Okay, so blood leaves the heart at high pressure via an artery. Okay, so when arriving at the destination, the arteries branch off into multiple smaller capillaries, which service individual cells. Okay, capillaries feed back into larger veins, which bring blood at low pressure back to the heart. Okay, so it goes arteries branching into capillaries, capillaries back into veins, and then the blood comes back. All right, now one last thing you need to be able to do, and this is really, really simple, is a calculation, and that is the rate of blood flow, right? So rate of blood flow. Okay, this is very, very simple. So basically your rate of blood flow is how much blood is passing a point in a given amount of time. Okay, and it's calculated via a simple equation, right? The rate of blood flow is equal to the volume, well, let's write that a bit neater, the volume of blood, okay, past that point, divided by how long it took, so the time, and that is normally going to be in minutes. All right, so let's have a look at a very quick example. Let's go down. Okay, so Bob measured that 1,500 milliliters or 1.5 liters of blood passed through an artery in 5 minutes. What was the rate of blood flow? Okay, so we simply use the equation. Rate is equal to the volume of blood, okay, which is 1,500 milliliters, divided by the time in minutes. Okay, and so we know what the units are going to be, right, because we've got milliliters and we've got minutes. And so if we carry out this calculation, we do 1,500 divided by 5 will give us 300, okay, milliliters per minute. Right, very, very simple. The only thing that could change there is they could ask for it in liters per minute, right? Then I'd say 0.3. They could mix the units up. They could have given us the time in seconds and want the answer in minutes or something like that. But the calculation is always going to be the same. You just need to make sure that you're working in the right units. All right, so I'm going to stop there. I hope that made sense. If there's anything you're still confused about, please feel free to post a comment in the box below or send me a direct email. But as usual, please like and subscribe because it really helps me out and it lets you know when new videos become available. But thanks for listening and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.